garrafa térmica do Starship foi feita no ano de 1980.
That's right.
Garrafa top, boa, cara. Garrafa
7 feet
Starship
tall,
é
fully
muito
stacked. It is massive. Standing at the base and looking up is like looking up at a
Galera,
building. Insane.
parabéns ao
zoeira Starship.
Both stages
Hoje
are
aqui no
designed to fly to
canal.
Earth to return to Earth and fly again, making this the first fully reusable rocket ever. The bottom half, or the
Starship.
first stage, is the super heavy booster. That's the silver part at the bottom. It's powered by 33 of our newest iteration Raptor 3 engines still there, and those run on liquid methane and oxygen. This version of Raptor provides significant increased thrust. With that additional thrust, fun fact, this version of Starship is also had fast
Voo 1, voo 2, voo 3.
version 1
do
starts on the
Starship, olha a
left,
diferença.
in the middle, V3 on the right, that was our first flight of V3. Those
Sendo
are
áudio.
12, and that thing just leaps off the pad. This version of the Raptor
Super Heavy also has 3 cruise fins now, which you can think of as aerodynamic rudders.
this version of Starship is also had
Voo
fast
1, voo 2, voo 3.
version 1 starts on the left,
Olha a diferença.
Espera aí.
at the top of the booster is the hot
Momento
engine
áudio, espera aí.
designed to protect leaks off the pad.
Agora vai. Agora, deixa eu ver se melhorou o áudio. Voo 1, voo 2, voo 3. Vê se melhorou o áudio. Melhorou? Espera aí.
Designed with Octane enabling point-to-point
Momento
transfer
áudio,
on
espera aí.
you can travel anywhere on the planet, just like an airplane, but this time in an hour or
Agora
less.
vai.
It's designed to carry massive payloads of cargo and crew to Earth
Um,
orbit,
dois,
Mars, and
três.
beyond.
Vê se melhorou o áudio. Melhorou?
Hey, thank you so much, Kate and Nate. I'm Tyler Lyons, Vice President, Starlink Business Analyst here at SpaceX. And for those of you who've been following along, Starlink version 3 satellites were designed to take full advantage of Starship's payload capacity. We're going to get our first look at those satellites today. The Starlink V3 is our next-gen satellite, and it's meaningful increases. Hey, thank you so much, Kate and Nate. I'm Tyler Lyons, Vice President, Starlink Business Analyst. We'll be adding around 20 times the capacity to the constellation on each Starship version 3 satellite. They're designed to take satellites that we currently launch without capacity. That means we're going to get our first look at those
2, 3.
Starlink V3 is our next-gen satellite.
Por que tá dando essa sonoridade, velho? Por quê? 2, 3 testando.
Starlink V3 sats are designed to support
Vai dar certo.
satellites that can 160 gigabits per second. That means we're going to get our first look at
2, 3. Agora melhorou? Por que tá dando essa sonoridade, velho? Por quê? Vamos ver Starship hoje, meu amigo. É Starship. É Starship. Vai dar certo. Tá dando. Vamos ver Starship, meus amigos.
Each Starlink V3 satellite is also equipped with 6
Starship.
400 gigabit
Tá do
space
versão 1
lasers.
para versão 2 para versão
These
3.
6 lasers will allow
É isso aí, gente, ó.
traffic to flow uninterrupted between any
Starship.
points in the world
Espera, eu vou ver um negócio aqui.
across a petabit laser mesh network. And if that wasn't enough, the
Aqui
V3s
não
will
vou
carry
tentar
4
capturar nenhum
quad
deles,
band
porque eles
radio
precisam
frequency backhaul
testar o
antennas.
método de
These will take
retorno
advantage of the KA,
dessa versão
E,
3, tá?
V,
Só por
and
isso.
W communication
O voo
bands,
anterior deu problema,
allowing
então
for an
por isso.
8 times
Salve para
improvement in
o
supporting
soldado Gabriel
capacity
Costa da
compared to
DOP
our
aí lá de
V2 sats.
Alcântara, lá
Now that's
da
a
base de
lot of
Alcântara,
growth
tá?
in
Pessoal do DOP
capacity
aí
and
que ajudou muita
capability.
gente
And
aí
as such, the
na
new
última
satellite
live.
design
Ó, e tem
requires
dois,
more power.
satélite tem
So the
dois,
solar arrays on
duas
V3
antenas de
will
backhaul, que é
generate
só para transferir
approximately
dados
twice as much
entre
power as the
as
current arrays
antenas,
that we
tá? Bem
fly
legal.
on the V2 satellites. And they're also
Aí os
optimized to
painéis
reduce
solares,
drag
o
in the
satélite é
lower
bem
orbital
legal.
vocês
altitudes
querem
that these satellites
Starship?
will operate.
Eles querem testar
Então vocês
toda a
querem
altura
Starship.
dos
Operationalize
painéis.
Ó!
satellites. We wanna put them
Aí ela
in
sendo
environment. So these
colocado os
satellites
seus
just loaded
celular,
in
satélites,
Starship
né?
abastecimento dos satélites, ó. A
And once
famosa
Você vê, ó.
disqueteira.
Starlink team will only
A
have
disqueteira
about
da-
10 minutes of flight
da Starship.
to run
Quando
some
teremos
tests
outro vídeo
before the
completo da
sat's
Starship,
demise
outro
in
já
the
tem 3
atmosphere.
anos. Eu quero
Now,
fazer
the
quando o
team
Starship
will
chegar em
attempt to
órbita,
run
cara.
tests
Muito
about
bom.
extending the new solar arrays and antennas, connecting with ground
O
stations,
Alejandro mandou
and
50
turning on the satellite communications systems. This is
dinheiros
all part of
mexicanos,
SpaceX's
pesos mexicanos
iterative
para isso pelo
process
conteúdo.
to
Os
technology
melhores no YouTube,
advancement.
sempre acompanham você,
And from the
salve do
beginning,
México.
Starlink
Boa.
was designed to scale rapidly and improve continuously. From production to launch and ground infrastructure, Starlink is uniquely positioned to keep pace with rising demand around the
É
world.
isso aí, gente. É Starship, né?
Just this week, we rolled out
A
the
moça aqui da
next
Starship
generation
aqui
Starlink
falando.
V5,
Estamos
which is built for
a,
reliable, high-speed home internet.
a 16 minutos do lançamento, né? As Starlink aqui e tudo. E é isso aí, gente. Vamos acompanhar a Starship. Gosto muito de foguete, principalmente a evolução do desenvolvimento da Starship pela SpaceX. A Starship ela vai ser um dos foguetes que irá substituir o Falcon 9, atualmente usado pela SpaceX, e que ele tem um propósito muito grande, né? Que é de cobrir, né?
All right, thanks, Tyler. Yeah,
Esse aí
new
de cobrir, né?
Starlink kits, new Starlink satellites, and we've also got development work ongoing on an entirely new satellite, our AI data centers satellite, StarMind. I actually got to sit down recently with Elon and our director of satellite engineering, Ian Dahl. We covered a whole lot of stuff.
Deixa eu ver o
The
negócio
focus
aqui.
really was on the 3 limiting factors to making data centers in space a reality. The first factor we really dug into was needing way more mass to orbit. We're talking megatons, and that's where Starship comes in by combining full reusability, massive payload capacity that's essential to launch the number of satellites that we're talking about, because we plan to deploy up
Cara,
to
espera só um
1 billion
momentinho
AI
aí
satellites, and those are going to function as orbital data centers,
na questão
leveraging
do
Starship for that high volume, low cost launch. There's a couple of reasons why moving data centers to space has some pretty immediate advantages over building them here on Earth, which takes us to our next limiting factor, and that's power generation. Because guess what? It's always sunny in space.
Só um momentinho.
Satellites can harness near constant solar energy. I mean, you're tapping into an energy source that becomes the only way to scale if AI continues to grow at the pace that it is, especially when you contrast it with all of the challenges we see here on Earth. Within about 2 to 3 years, we believe space-based AI compute will become the lowest cost option as launch costs drop and Earth-based power constraints grow. So it's going to just transform how our planet powers AI. And to unlock all of that, we get to our third limiting factor. We need to make significantly more chips, and we got to do it fast. And that's where we're going with Terafab. This is going to be the most epic chip building effort ever. And we say epic, you just look at the scale of this thing. That's the size of a Tesla Gigafactory, about 10 million square feet. We need to think bigger. We're looking at about 100 million square feet, so you're talking 10 gigafactories worth of space. It all sounds a bit fantastical, a bit out there, but all of this together represents a step towards becoming a galactic civilization, harnessing more power from our nearest star, supporting the reality-shifting AI applications that are coming, and advancing humanity's multiplanetary future. So, if you want to learn more about that, you can watch that full conversation on our website at SpaceXAI/StarMind. So, a lot of really cool stuff coming. Kate, future looking pretty sweet, but first things first, Flight 13.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The future is built on progressive steps like today's test. Now, let's dive into the flight profile.
Right, so today we'll be starting with liftoff of Pad 2 here at Starbase. Super Heavy will ignite those 33 Raptor 3 engines and then power through ascent ahead of our hot stage separation, which is when the booster will shut down all but 5 engines at the bottom. Stage 2 will then light its own Raptor engines.
Foi.
That hot stage
Muito
separation.
bom.
We will then have the directional booster
Muito bom.
with Super Heavy igniting those 33
Vamos
Raptor
voltar
engines.
aqui.
And after coasting for a few minutes, the booster will then target
Aí, ó,
a
foi.
splash down a few miles off the coast of Starbase.
Ship keeps the fun going with its ascent burn to a suborbital trajectory. We then deploy those 20 Starlink V3 satellites, and we plan to relight a single Raptor engine. Re-entry then follows a few minutes later, which should provide some amazing views via Starlink of the ship's blistering re-entry through the Earth's atmosphere. A plasma blanket will form around the vehicle, and this never fails to provide epic scenes as the vehicle comes back. And lastly, we'll conclude today's test with a landing flip, landing burn, and a splashdown in the Indian Ocean. And with that, let's kick it back up to Dan for a countdown update.
Hey, thanks, Kate. Good news is very little news. We are continuing to look on track for a liftoff today, not tracking any issues on the vehicle or the pad side. Range status continues to be green. Reminder, we're tracking the range out in the Gulf off the coast of Starbase where we're launching over, and then also out in the Indian Ocean where we're hopefully sending a Starship in just about 11 minutes from now. Weather looks gorgeous.
Sei, gente.
Skies, low winds, a couple of clouds, not a concern for
Deu
flight
certo.
today. I think the vehicle and the pad both looking great. We are in kind of the latter
Tá aí o
stage
Starship,
of
você vê?
loading. We got into
A bexiguinha tá aí, ó.
Chicago with the flight control team at about T-minus 1 hour, and then we've been loading prop for
Só.
we're gonna continue
Tá aí, ó.
propelling
A nave,
liquid
né,
oxygen,
tá
liquid
quase,
methane onto
tem
both of these
quase
vehicles
cheio, espera um
until
minutinho.
just a little over 2 minutes before we lift off. We'll close out on the ship at about 2 minutes and 10 seconds, and on the booster before that at about 2 minutes and 50 seconds. So, at the moment, we're looking good. We're counting down to the very top of our window. It was a 90-minute window. It opens right at 5:45 p.m. Central Time. Looking good to hit that right at the top. Back over to you guys.
Thanks, Dan. Now, as teams prepare for today's launch from Texas, work is also continuing on the other side of the Gulf in Florida, where Starship will soon be launching, potentially later this year.
That's right. Starship flights from Florida will initially lift off from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Teams are working through Starship system activations, performing initial tower chopstick motion tests, confirming the operation of the hold downs on the launch mount, and performing multiple integrated tests of the propellant farms, water farm, diverter, and launch mount. With Starship coming to 39A, the launch complex will soon have 2 operational pads for 2 very different rockets with Starship and Falcon Heavy. It has been awesome to see the 39A Starship program come to life over several years, and it's going to be exciting to soon see a Starship launch from this historic pad.
Yeah, we're super excited. But 39A isn't SpaceX's only pad in Florida. Just a few miles down the coast at Space Launch Complex 37, the first of 2 Starship launch
Vamos
pads
encher aqui pra
at
me
that
aproveitar,
site
né,
is
Starship?
quickly taking shape. Pad 37A is targeted to be ready for flight operations early next year, which is very fast considering we only started construction on the pad in November. This year, teams have worked through ground preparations at the pad and fuel farms while also fully excavating the flame trench for Pad 37A. In June, stacking began of the launch and catch tower, and you can see that there on your screen. And we have plans to complete that stacking in the coming weeks.
And a few miles west of Pad 37 is Arcade Giga Bay, where all Starship vehicles in Florida will be processed for flight. Recently, teams finished erecting all of the building's steel and are now working to finish the exterior of the structure. In the coming weeks, SpaceX will complete activation of the first crane in the building, set up the first integration stands, and complete platform work to be ready for supporting the first Starship vehicles that will arrive in Florida. We'll transport the rockets from Texas to Florida, and honestly, it's just going to be so exciting to see a Starship take flight from the Space Coast. Especially exciting as I had the opportunity to play a role in the Starship Cape program in my previous role, so
That's pretty awesome.
pretty awesome.
Yeah. Clearly, SpaceX's future in Florida is coming together quickly, with planned launches already on the horizon, including regular trips to the moon. And speaking of the moon, NASA recently announced the Artemis 3 crew for the next moon mission. Let's head back up to Dan for more on that.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. I mean, we're not going to take a minute. We're not going to take a minute to nerd out a little bit about the moon. So NASA just announced the Artemis 3 mission. That's going to be a crewed demonstration flight into low Earth orbit designed to demonstrate a lot of the critical systems needed for future lunar landings. We've got our astronaut crew, 3 from NASA, 1 from the European Space Agency. Randy Bresnik, Luca Parmitano, Frank Rubio, and Andre Douglas are going to crew that mission slated for 2027. That's going to be the penultimate mission, the final test before Artemis attempts to put astronaut boots back on the moon for the first time since 1972. For our part, we're going to be launching a Starship with a docking port on the nose so we can practice rendezvous and docking with the crew inside of Orion. One of our key test objectives is going to come after docking. We're going to be able to test out the maneuverability of both vehicles while they're connected. This has some extra importance as the revamp plan for the Artemis landing missions are going to use Starship to do the burn that sends astronauts to the moon from the Earth orbit. And one other cool ad that just came out today, NASA's going to be putting 2 SpaceX mini lasers on Orion to connect it to our Starlink constellation, where we already use thousands of lasers today, and they're going to be doing that with the goal of enabling 4K imagery and video from the spacecraft while they're in space. So a lot of excitement planned for next year as we all work together to send humans back to the moon, begin building a moon base, get to that future where anybody that wants to go to the moon is going to hopefully be able to go to the moon. So lots of really cool stuff to come. For now, though, we're at T-minus 6 minutes, 18 seconds into today's launch, and we're getting into terminal count. So let's zoom in. So range continues to be green. Weather continues to be gorgeous. We are getting into the final stages of propellant loading on both stages of Starship. Again, we're putting liquid oxygen, liquid methane on both the booster and the ship. Ship has main tanks. It also has those small header tanks in the very top and the nose of the vehicle that we're going to fill up. We're going to close out on the ship at about 2 minutes and 10 seconds before launch, and then the booster at about 2 minutes and 50. Once we're completely done prop loading, you've got about 11.5 billion pounds of liquid propellant on board both stages. Then we start to get the pad itself ready for launch. We do pushbacks. That's your clearing out all of those propellant feed lines that have been flowing from the tank farm into the tower, into the vehicles, push it back into the tank farm, and then we also start purging all of those lines with an inert gas, just getting it ready for launch. We'll do final thrust vector steering controls on our Raptor engines at about T-minus 100 seconds and then T-minus 60 seconds. If a hold is needed, shocking change, it's now going to come at T-minus 60 seconds. That's a new time. We've balanced out a couple of our final checks that happened before liftoff, and we moved them a little bit earlier before we start flying. So that time is now at T-minus 60. That's the point where we can pause to wait. We'll only hold there if there's an issue, and we can recycle back.
Minus 60 seconds passes, a number of events will occur in rapid succession. Both the ship and booster will configure their comm systems for flight and will rapidly run leak checks on gas and fluid tanks. The booster will also go to internal power and its engines will get its final priming for launch, while the ship's engines begin their ascent bleed profile and it arms the automatic flight safety system. There's a lot of mechanical activations on the tower side as well, with one critical step, unlatching the quick disconnect feeding propellant into the ship.
And once T-minus 60 seconds has passed, there is still the ability to rapidly recycle the count under certain conditions back to that T-minus 60 second hold point. We can hold there and assess what happened and if teams can proceed again to T0. We've got about 5 to 8 minutes of hold time, and that will largely be driven by the propellant temperatures that we see on the vehicle while holding. The flame diverter on pad 2, which you can see the side profile of it there on your screen, that activates at T-minus 17 seconds, and if we trigger a hold after that, it will result in a scrub for the day. So we're now just under 3.5 minutes until liftoff.
O oxigênio, aqui é o metano, oxigênio, metano.
20 of our Starlink V3
O oxigênio é o metano é o combustível e o hidrogênio é o oxidante, né? Que faz a mistura para fazer os motores funcionarem. Tá bufando, tá bufando, você vê, ó, bufando.
All right, so we're through the 3-minute mark. So
Eles vão soltando porque
upload on the
a
booster
pressão
any second
aumenta
now.
nos tanques. Se não
the
tiver
closeouts on the ship will come just
esvaziar a pressão dos tanques,
Again, we're looking a
tudo
little over
desmoviria.
11.5
Igual a panela de
million
pressão.
pounds on both
A
of
panela de
these
pressão é quem
vehicles,
soltando a pressão dela, aos poucos. Porque se a pressão ficar lá, ela vai estourar.
which is
Ao
always
mesmo sentido aqui,
reminder we have that built-in hold
quando
at
o combustível
T-minus
está adentrando o
Only to
tanque.
stop there if we run into an issue where we need a couple of minutes to hang out. But right now we have no holds on the board, so a whole lot on deck for Starship second flight, Starship version 3, booster version 3, Raptor 3. Looking to get off the pad here in 2 minutes.
Vai descobrir daqui 2 minutos, não, mais ou menos vai, 1 hora e pouco como é que vai ficar o aftermarket. Johnny pode mandar
All right, so we are closing the fill drain valves for both vehicles. So we have finished out our propellant loading. 33 Raptor engines right there at the bottom of the booster, getting ready to light up. Final wiggle checks happening now. Those inner 13 engines moving. Those are the ones that Super Heavy is going to be using to steer, do all its maneuvers.
Testando o movimento dos motores, a sambadinha final.
We just got through those. Okay, so we are 1 minute, 20 seconds away, counting down.
Testando basicamente o que eles vão fazer.
We're going to listen in. Again, not tracking a hold, so we should move right past T-minus 1 minute. We recycle back to it. We'll figure out why, and then we'll continue counting down. So let's go. T-minus 1 minute. Let's listen in. Let the rocket do the talking. See if we can get a Starship off the pad today.
Entrando no minuto final, vamos lá.
Final.
We did trigger a
Não
hold.
vou. Vamos ver.
So again, we have this hold built in. We've got a couple of checkouts that are going to happen on the vehicle and the pad that we've got to clear. A lot of it's tied to essentially the different pressures that are in the systems that are feeding prop into the vehicles. Looks like we are getting ready to reset that hold belt. And the clock is rolling.
Não vou.
Mais de 10, liberou o hold. Liberou o hold, vamos lá. Só acerta o cronômetro aí rapidão, meu querido, vamos lá. 50 segundos. Vamos ver.
Bora.
Vamos ver. Vamos iniciar.
Tá indo.
Vocês estão no Space
Vai
Force.
indo primeiro, hein? Bora, Starship.
Vamos para o lançamento do maior foguete do mundo. Starship está pronto. 23 segundos. Vamos iniciar a contagem já.
Agora é emoção.
Vamos acompanhar com a gente aqui. 10, 9, 8,
Foi.
6,
O que aconteceu? Deu algum problema. Falhou.
Temos um aborto.
Abortou bem na
We
hora.
did trigger a hold right at startup there. You saw we got a hold on the booster.
Temos aborto. Alguma
So
coisa
stick with us
aconteceu
for a
aqui
second.
que não foi o Starship. O sistema chegou a...
So we did trigger a hold on the booster that aborted our liftoff as we were starting to light those Raptor engines.
Algum tipo de disparo e parou.
As a reminder, since we already turned the diverter on, we are going to be scrubbed for the day. The team's already starting to pull for offload of both vehicles, so starting to get the prop off.
Deu scrub. Acabaram de confirmar que deu scrub.
We'll take a little bit of time to look into what triggered that abort. Usually we'll take some data review for all of our
Informação
teams.
de agora.
But again, we did abort on the startup of the booster. So we weren't tracking any holds moving in to those final seconds into that final minute. But that is going to be a scrub for the day. So the team's now moving into commodity offload. We're going to take the methane and the oxygen off of both Starship and Super Heavy.
O foguete está bem, vão desabastecer o veículo, tá? Porém, não teremos
So
lançamento hoje.
not the
Não teremos lançamento hoje. Beleza? Vamos acompanhar as informações aqui. Infelizmente,
Felizmente deu ruim.
não foi o resultado que gostaríamos. Eles vão ter que descobrir o que aconteceu e vão informar quando terá um lançamento novamente. Certo? Foi a primeira vez que isso aconteceu com o Starship. Isso nunca aconteceu comigo antes, né?
Vou finalizar aqui.
Tanto